All right, you guys. So I want to go ahead and talk you through a little bit of how I usually go through and structuring a conditioning workout. So go ahead and go back and watch the video I just did on exercise science that covers that. I believe it does have periodization as part of the title there, and that talks about how I would go ahead and structure up a program as a whole over 6 months to a year's time, depending on how long you want to do it. So one thing I did say in there was that you do 6 weeks per section or period of the workout. So you could go down to like 4 weeks or a month if you wanted to, if you want to progress through that faster. But you really need to be listening to your body when you're doing that. So when we're looking at conditioning workouts, we have different styles that we can do it in, right? And so one of them is going to be max reps per segment of time, right? So if I have, I'm doing a Tabata set, right? I'm doing 20 seconds, and in that 20-second period of time, I'm going to do as many reps as I possibly can, right? And so that's going to be one way to do kind of a conditioning workout. The other one is going to be the flip side of that, right? So I'm going to say that I have, let's say, 12 reps, right? As fast as possible or quickly as possible, right? So with the max reps, this is as much reps as you can do in 20 seconds. This is 12 reps as fast as you possibly can. And another way that you could do it is you could do max sets, right? So if I'm doing a circuit and I've got 5 minutes on the clock, I'm going to do as many of that circuit as I possibly can within that time. So this might be a combination of these two. But it depends on how you're structuring it, right? So I might do, let's say that I'm going to do like a 40-second or 1 minute rest between each circuit. Maybe I do 5 exercises before that circuit. I'm going to do my 12 reps as fast as possible, get through the whole circuit, then I'm going to rest and go back to it, right? Versus this, if you have 5 minutes on the clock, you have 3 exercises to get through, you're going to get through those exercises as fast as you possibly can. So this is kind of more loaded type thing. So, but when I say loaded, I don't necessarily mean you have to have weights or dumbbells. Loaded just means that you have resistance. So if I'm doing push-ups, if I'm doing, I've got a bar out and I'm doing a parallel to the ground row, right? So I'm pulling my chest up to there. I'm doing crunches. I'm doing squats or whatever. That's going to be building up my circuit, and so the maximum amount of sets are versus reps. I talked myself into a little circle there, and I apologize for that. So, these are just kind of different ideas that you can go with. But this is kind of more for if you're doing resistance, right? You don't have to be, right? So again, when you're doing Tabata sets, for example, and you can go ahead and Google this, Tabata. I apologize for my horrendous handwriting. And we talked about this a little bit a moment ago. So what Tabata means is it's a protocol of rest over, work first, then rest, okay? Alright, and so what that's going to basically mean is that we want to have a ratio where the amount of rest we have is going to be half as much as the amount of time that we have to, so here we go 40, 20, 30, 15, 20, and 10. Right? So one thing that I did for a while there was like I would time myself whenever I was swimming laps, for example, and when I would get down to the, so I'd see the start time on the timer, and then I would see the end time, and then I would divide that by 2, and that's how long I'd rest. And usually, I would do a length in, 20 seconds to 30 seconds or something like that. Like I was in a range where I could be like, okay, I can quickly say I'm going to rest for half as long as this, and I would try to get it down do this 20-10 if I possibly could. I don't think I can swim a length in that long, but it's been a while since I've actually timed myself, so I don't remember how fast I go. But anyways, that could be what your Tabata is. So if you are, let's say you're running, and I would recommend if you're running, I would go out to a track, if you can get one on a high school or something like that, or in a park, and actually use a timer and sprint and stop. So this kind of brings me back to kind of this thing, right? So this is made by Everlast. It's an okay little timer. I haven't found one that I like better yet. So it's just, these can be a little bit temperamental in their design. But you can set it to have, your work period versus rest period. One thing, I've got a bad habit with this, and the bad habit is that I tend to put my work at the top and my rest at the bottom. And I would actually probably recommend flipping those, right? So you would have 20 seconds to get started, and this just gives you time to go set your timer down somewhere, clip it onto something so that you don't have to carry it, or if you have it on close. But I find this distracting, so I don't tend to really love to do that. And it'll just go ding 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 when you want to start, and ding 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 when you want to stop. And the thing about Tabata, and I mentioned this in one of our workout videos, is that this is a start-to-stop time. So certain things you don't want to be doing Tabata circuits on. One of them would be like a treadmill, right? And the reason why you wouldn't want to do a treadmill is because the treadmill is going to take time to speed up and slow down. So when you're trying to get these intervals going, new singlet, just made it. When you're trying to get these circuit intervals going, if you have like a 5 to 8 second time that it takes for that treadmill to get up to speed, if you're trying to do a 20-10, well, that's half your workout, right? And then you have to hit the stop and slow down button, or if you, some of them have the automatics, but kind of just goes womp, 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 and it's not going to work. And besides the fact that you're working your hip flexors and you're not working your hamstrings, and we've already discussed that quite a bit on why you wouldn't want to do that. But if you're working on the ground, then you're going to get your hamstrings going. So, basically, and this is kind of where I get really, really anal about these types of timed circuits, is that you want to make sure that you're always starting on the bell. So you're anticipating it, getting ready. So if I have a 20-second rest period, because I tend to like to work in this 40-20 more than the 20-10, I will actually count up to 15, and I know that, okay, I'm getting close to that 5 second. So I'm going to get in position to be able to move right when I hear the bell. And that is the way that you're going to be able to do these. So always anticipate the bell on start, and then wait for the bell on stop. And that's one of the things that, especially this one has a 3-second countdown, and it's nice for going into, and it's optional, by the way, it could be, but it's nice for going into a circuit, because okay, now I have to get into position. But at the end of the circuit, what people tend to do is that they tend to be like, okay, 3, 2, 1, and they kind of stop 3 seconds early. So again, this is not being quite honest with ourselves when we're developing these circuits to do our conditioning. So the other thing that we have, and I just downloaded this today, and I kind of looked at it, and it's a little bit hidden as far as how it actually shows it, and I think I'm going to have to toy around with it a little bit more, but this is just a reaction timer. And so what this does is you have your settings here, and you go up into your settings here, and I hope you guys can see this okay. So it has your maximum interval and your minimal interval, and so you would program this by clicking on it, and it would say, okay, how many seconds do you want to be your max interval or your less? And it's going to do random times, and it's going, and really a lot of the sounds that are in here, because I think it's a lot more boxing oriented as far as what it's trying to do, but a lot of the sounds will have like multiple syllables, and you don't want that. You want to have a quick one sound, and so there's, I think the one that just says go, and that's one syllable, something that tells you to switch. And the reason why I want to have a random interval timer, especially when we're talking about wrestling, right? We did it in our one of our last workout videos that Jet and I shared, where we were at the Japanese garden. And what we did is we did what I would refer to as a follow drill, and this is something that you would do with a partner, right? So what I would do is I'd have like 6 feet between me and the partner, or 8 feet, probably not much more of that. And then I'm going to move forward and move back, and my partner's going to react to those sudden movements, and he's going to want to stay in front of me the whole time. Now, this can be simulated with that interval timer. So I'm going to run forward and back and move, and that's going to tell me when to move in random intervals. So I usually say 1 second to 5 seconds, right? That's going to be a long enough period so that you're going to have these really random times, and they're not going to be too spread out that you're going to be going like half a mile down the street before you get another, oh, come back, right? And so that's going to cue you to say, okay, I need to stop, I need to come back, right? And you can obviously do it laterally. You could plan like different directions that you're going to go in a certain pattern, so you have to stop and then shift directions really quickly. So those types of reaction drills would be something that's very, very good for you for being a wrestler and whatnot. The other thing that you can do, there are like lacrosse balls, but they have little nubs on them so that they move erratically, and so you can toss them against the wall and it's going to bounce erratically, and you have to chase and go catch it, and that would be another way to do kind of a reaction drill. Another way that you could do it is that you could do like the burpee or sprawl drill, right? So you're like here and you're up and you're moving, and then you hear the bell, you sprawl down and you come back up, right? So that's going to be working on that kind of agility there. So different kind of ideas for you here as far as like different ways that you can go about working on conditioning. And going back to that exercise science video that we did, or series that I did, I'm really, really distractible today. I didn't sleep well last night. I apologize, guys. But anyways, when we are doing these, remember that we want to be paying attention to what type of system that we are actually conditioning, right? And so, if you are very early on into going into these circuits, you might, for your Tabata workouts, be going completely low resistance and be mostly focused on building your cardiovascular and lung endurance, right? So I'm not going to be doing a lot of heavy weights, and then I'm going to be doing my lifting on the side, right? But when you get more advanced, especially since we're wrestling, we're talking about wrestling here, we want to be doing these things with some kind of load. And the key things to that is that we want to make sure that our form is absolutely perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about how do we structure these workouts, right? And it depends, okay, on what you're trying to accomplish. And one of the things that we haven't really gone into yet with our anatomy stuff and whatnot is the concept of a agonist, antagonist, synergist, and no, that's basically it. And so your agonist is going to be your prime mover muscle. So if I'm doing a chest press, my pectoral is going to be the prime mover. My synergists would be like my anterior deltoid a little bit, my triceps. These muscles are going to be helping me get into that position. Then I've got the stabilizing muscles here in the back, and those are going to be your antagonists. They're the ones that are working against you the whole time that you're doing whatever movement that you're doing, right? And so one of the things that you could do or you could not do, right, is that I might have two movements that are going to work with my supporting muscles, right? So I could be doing like a tricep kickback followed by a push-up, and now I'm going to be more pec dominant on that push-up because my synergists are already pre-fatigued. That's one kind of a little bit more of an advanced thing to do, because what you're doing when you're doing those types of movements is that you are actually requiring a little bit more stabilization within the other movers that are not already tired, and you're requiring a lot more pec activation here, and you're going to be a little bit less controlled because you're already pre-fatigued. So that's something to kind of keep in mind when we are designing our workouts. And so we have to pay attention to which muscles are going to be prime movers, which ones are going to be secondary muscles that are going to be involved, because we want to pay attention to what's going to be fatigued so that we are planning our workouts so that we don't get injured or anything along those lines. So one way that I would do it, and this is kind of a common way that I'll do it, is I'll do like 3 sets, or like 3 to 5 sets, right? So, and within these sets, I'm going to go uh, 3 different movements for each one. And I can apparently not count because I did not know that 2's come before 3's, right? So for each one, for this first circuit, let's say that, we're not, well, let's say that we're doing this with 2 days break rest in between since we're beginning, right? And so I might do push up here as my first movement, right? So there I've got a push movement. And then I'm going to do a squat. Okay, very basic thing to be doing there. If you want to, you could progress it into like a jump squat or something along those lines, right? And then next I'm going to go into maybe a core movement. So I'm going to do a bicycle crunch, right? All right, so that's going to be my first circuit. And what I notice when I'm looking at that first circuit is I've got triceps and pectorals here. I'm doing quadriceps predominantly with a little bit of glute there, and then I'm doing front chain abdominals there, right? And so maybe for my, I might look at this and say, okay, well, I want to work my back as well. So I'm going to do cobras. So that's just like kind of Superman's. You put your hands out in front of you and then you lift your chest and your thighs off the ground at the same time. Maybe you can keep your shoulder blades together and touch your pinkies to your thigh and then bring them up to the top while you're holding that cobra position. So that might be one thing that you're doing. Okay, so for like my squat, maybe I'll get out a physio ball and I'm going to do a hamstring curl, or maybe let's say deadlift. So let's keep it pretty basic here. So I'm going to do a deadlift here. Okay, and I did a pushing movement here. So maybe I'm going to do a renegade row. All right, and what that is where you have dumbbells on the ground, and then you're going to pull one and pull one. So you're in that plank position. So now we're going to get a little bit more core on that as well, right? But it's going to be front chain core, which yes, is a little bit pre-fatigued, but it's all right. So circuit 1, circuit 2. And so what am I missing here? Well, okay, I don't have an overhead push type thing, so maybe I'm going to go ahead and just do a lat raise here. Right? And maybe because both of these are sagittal plane movements, right? So, and I think I've talked about that a little bit, but sagittal is movements that go straight to the front. Frontal plane is this guy, and transverse plane is this guy, right? We've got some transverse plane for our core already, along with a little bit of sagittal mixed into it, right? This is the sagittal movement, sagittal, sagittal actually. So right. So we're missing a lot of the other planes. So we've got maybe a lat raise. So we're gonna get a little bit of that abduction over there. Maybe I might do like what I refer to as starfish, right? And you can do this a couple different ways. You can lay all the way on the ground and then you're abducting your leg like that. You could have your body already kind of in this position, so you're maintaining an isometric, which means that your muscle's neither contracting nor expanding, but it's holding, right, of this extension of the hip while you're doing that. So we can throw in our starfish along with our lat raise. And so what am I missing here? Well, I could do a sagittal movement, but I kind of already hit that with the bicycle crunch. And I've got the cobras here, so maybe maybe there's something else that I haven't really hit here. I could do it instead of core movement. I might do an isometric core movement. We've already got the renegade row that's going to kind of do that here. One of the ones that I kind of like to do is like putting your shoulders on a physio ball and then dropping your arms off to the side with, maybe up to a 5-pound weight, maybe 7.5. You don't want to go too heavy for that with a wide base with your legs. And that way your core has to adapt to that. So that might be one thing that you could do. You could do like a slam ball. You can have it up against the wall and slam it against the wall. You can use your obliques to do that. So whatever kind of random core exercise you want to do here as well to kind of finish that up. And so this would be like one day of doing a very, very basic circuit. There's nothing here that's like really, really outlandish, but and I've got different ways I could do it, right? So I could say that I'm going to do 5 sets of each of these, right? And I'm just going to do them as fast as I can. I have a minute rest between each time I do a circuit. So I'm going to do my push-ups, and I'm going to have, let's say, 20 reps. I push out 20 reps of push-ups. If I need to go to my knees, I do. There's no shame in that. You do what you have to get through the workout and maintain good form, right? Squats. Maybe the first set was too easy, right? I do the squats, and it was just... it wasn't challenging enough. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and transition into jump squats or plyo lunges or something like that as I progress on. So you use your judgment, okay, where am I going to be? How much more do I have to do for the day, right? And then I have my bicycle crunch. Maybe I'll progress it into another crunch variation. But I'm going to do one set as fast as I possibly can, and then I'm going to rest. The next way that I could do it is I could do it as a Tabata, right? So I'm going to do 40-20. So I'm going to do 40 seconds of push-ups, and then I'm going to do 20 seconds of rest. I'm going to do 40 seconds of squats, 20 seconds of rest, and then keep going. And because the rest is already incorporated into the workout, I'm not going to rest between sets, right, in that Tabata. I'm just going to keep going, and let's say I'm going to do 3 sets, or I'm going to do 5 sets. Depends on how advanced you are, right? Maybe I'm going to do a 20-10, which, maybe I'm going to do 8 sets of a 20-10. Oh my god, that would be killer, right? The other way that we could do it is I've got 5 minutes on the clock. I'm going to do, let's say, 12 reps for each set, and I'm going to get through the circuit as fast as I possibly can. And so, yeah, that's kind of ways that one way that I might do it. If I want to have more variety because I'm ADHD and I want to have a larger circuit, I can totally do that, guys. Right? So now you got 9 exercises, right, that we are going to be doing straight through, and let's say we're going to do it 3 to 5 times, right? So I'm going to do my whichever format I'm going to do, and I'm going to go through the whole list and go back up. And really, for this type of thing, I'm really focused on just continuing to keep going and being very clean with those sets, and I want to be very clean with my form. But since we're focusing on developing your vasculature, we're trying to develop your lungs, we're trying to develop your heart, and which is basically what your endurance is, right? It doesn't matter how we really structure these, as long as we keep going and then we don't push ourselves too far. And that's one of the key things, guys. One of the things that came up on the poll when we were talking about things that you guys wanted to focus on, one of the things that came up on that poll was rehabilitating injuries, guys. Nothing's going to keep you from training and keep you from wrestling and doing anything like an injury. So don't get injured in the first place. No matter how tired you are, that's how much more focus you have to put into making each movement perfect. And that's probably the most important thing that I can tell you right now. The second most important thing, guys, is listen to your body, right? If you start feeling nauseous or dizzy, you need to stop. Now, I did say that in one of the previous workout videos that we did, and I did out in the park, and then what you saw me do is you saw me slow down, and you saw me regress exercises. I don't even know if that made it into the final cut, but that's totally the right thing to do, right? If you say, okay, I'm getting a little bit nauseous, I'm getting a little bit dizzy, have a little bit of water, try to focus on your breathing as much as possible, and slow down. If your goal is just keep moving, that's a great thing to do. When you feel dizzy or nauseous, one of the worst things you can do is sit down on the ground and let your blood pool in your body. You want that blood to circulate, so you need to keep that heart rate up at least a little bit. And so just walking around, pacing in a circle or pacing in lines or whatever, that's going to be a very healthy thing for you to do to recover from that nauseous, from that dizziness that you're experiencing. So, really just kind of think about ways that you can challenge yourself, pay attention to your body, pay attention to your form. If you can't do a push-up without shrugging your shoulders up, without letting your core sink and your hips drop and all that, and you're doing like SEAL push-ups, not Navy SEAL, but I mean like you look like a SEAL because you're coming here and you're like, right? Or you're pushing your hips back so that it's easier and you can use more deltoid into that. If that's the way that you're doing your push-ups, you need to dial it back. You need to drop down to your knees. You need to clean up all that form, and you need to get that technique down perfect before you start doing any circuit training, because that's how you're going to get injured. You also need to be very mindful about muscle imbalances and that type of thing, right? If you are squatting, and I guess I'll do a little bit here, but if you're squatting and you're kind of coming into a little bit of a PB dance here where your knees are coming together, that is seriously going to blow out your knees, right? That's going to cause damage if you keep allowing that to happen. A little bit of a lateral digression like this is not the end of the world, but I want you to pay attention to that. If you have a mirror or something, or a partner that can actually watch you, if you have like this internal rotation of the hip here, the knees caving in, pushing out on that knee will get your hips centered, right? So it's activating that is what was happening, is working on those external rotators. And that might be a sign that you need to be working on extensions, external rotation, starfish, that type of thing, to try to get your glutes a lot more activated and a lot stronger, so that they're not inactive here and being overpowered by your internal rotators and your adductors there. So I think that's kind of a good place for us to start here, guys. I'm trying to think of maybe what we'll do is I'm going to create a exercise library for you guys, and I will write out a program that kind of goes from the very basics all the way to an advanced circuit sort of idea. And I think that's probably the best way to kind of go about this. And I want you guys to be very, very active about and communicating with me, okay? When you're going through these workouts, asking about things that you're noticing. Like if you're doing lat raises and you feel like your shoulder girdle's getting really stiff, well, you're probably going too far back with that, and you're impinging your shoulder as you do it. I'm not going to give you any upright rows because, again, that's going to impinge your shoulder and you're going to have issues that are going to come up with that. So we want to be very mindful of what our body is trying to tell us, especially in our joints. If you're feeling knee pain, we need to address that. We need to find out why, and then we're going to be going from there. So guys, this is kind of my rundown on ways that you can structure for conditioning workouts. Again, you can do it loaded, you can do it unloaded. Both are going to be very, very good for you. I just have to figure out how I'm going to do it with you guys not having access to equipment. So maybe I'll do a combination of both for people that do and do not have access to equipment. I do hear gyms are opening relatively soon, which is kind of a terrifying thing right now. But anyways, that's what I got for you tonight, guys. Have a good one. Stay safe.